Welcome back to Peaking. On this episode, I talk with Dr. Josh Simmons, author of Nihilo, the field manual for building success out of nothing. Dr. Josh Simmons is a strategist, teacher, and builder who's navigated the climb from minimum wage grind to high stakes decision making, and he writes for those willing to bet on themselves. He's also an engineering manager at a startup, just moved on from American Express, has a ton of stories, and I think you will enjoy this conversation. Dr. Josh Simmons, welcome to Peaking. How you doing today?
Wyatt, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Our introduction was unlike any other business introduction I think I've had. You commented on some random LinkedIn post with the comment, something about it being based. I just don't see that on LinkedIn. I was like, wow, this is a real human. Yeah, this is not an NPC using the word based on LinkedIn. So I reached out. I said, I need to be more connected to people that use based on LinkedIn. Where does that come from? Talked about your background, where you're coming from.
Yeah, that was a great intro, by the way, to meet you on LinkedIn. Always good to connect that way, kind of serendipitously with people. Yeah, based. I don't know, like internet slang, lingo, like you just don't care what people think. You know, you said something maybe a little bit controversial and you just don't really care about the blowback. It was just worth saying. I think that's something, especially in engineering and in tech, I hold in just the highest regard as a quality in people. So I don't even remember. I wish we could remember what the post was. I have no idea what it was, but it was kind of like a hot take, like maybe a little bit politically incorrect. And I'm like, based, indeed.
It really is. It's a minefield on LinkedIn. You got to be careful, and everyone's worried. Anyone that works for a corporation, they're just muted. You know, people don't want to rock the boat at all, which is understandable. I didn't really comment or do anything on LinkedIn either as an employee, so I'm not saying anything is wrong with that necessarily. I'm an entrepreneur now, so I'm like accountable to myself, but you were an employee of American Express, a massive corporation, and still using great verbiage. So I was impressed. And Amex, awesome company. You just left there, so maybe you have a different opinion one way or another, but talk a little bit about your career, where you've come from. Obviously you have a PhD, which in the book you talk about kind of just going through it and deciding that was the path, or maybe someone had decided that path for you and obviously took a different direction. But yeah, why don't we just start from the beginning? Talk about how you decided to go that education path.
Yeah, I don't think I did, really. I think my entire career has been a series of missteps that have landed me in good situations. It's kind of been fantastic that way. So I originally started off, I was a music education major in undergrad. Like I thought I wanted to teach, a really good high school band teacher. And so I'm like, I want to teach high school band in like rural Ohio, where I'm from. I never lived outside of it. And then like 2 years in from that, like, I'm really having fun with a lot of the theory and stuff. So I switched to composition. So I got my undergrad in music composition, which like you want to talk about totally useless degree. I mean, other than intrinsic benefits, it's like, you know, what job are you going to get with a music composition degree? None. Nobody cares, but it was fun and I enjoyed it. So started getting more involved in tech at that time. I've always been a tech enthusiast. I started using a computer like very, very, very young. I was very fortunate in that way. My dad's company was kind of proactive on that front. So he brought home laptops, old desktop towers earlier. So I'd always had kind of a technical thing going. So I got more into digital signal processing during my master's degree. So like audio synthesis, processing signals in real time. That kind of mutated into this weird applied CS PhD that I got into and mostly worked on like high frequency, high bandwidth visualization of data in virtual reality, which was awesome. It was really cool. But again, like not a lot of employment prospects. And so I've been paying some bills by doing web dev work outside of that during the PhD. And honestly, like didn't really like it at all. I'm like, I'm kind of good at this and I can make a decent amount of money off of it to pay for, you know, concert tickets, plane tickets, things like that, and important things in grad school. And so when my options, when I finished the PhD were basically like, do you want to go teach at some backwoods regional university for like $40K a year? It's adjunct, like the job isn't guaranteed after a year. And it's in like Oklahoma. Nothing against Oklahoma or anything, but it's like I was living in SoCal at that point. It was quite like a lifestyle change. Like, you know, if the alternative is that versus like I'll keep doing this thing that I don't really like, which is coding, it's kind of meh. But I can make a ton of money, especially in Southern California. Like I'll do that. So I kept doing it for a while, and I don't know if it was like insanity or just repetition, but at some point it clicked and I really started to actually enjoy coding and enjoy software development. Kind of funny how that worked. It was almost like an arranged marriage or something. It was foisted upon me, and then eventually I'm like, you know what? I do love this actually.
That's not the worst outcome there, man. If you would have gone to Oklahoma and taught, I don't know how people live in Oklahoma. I've driven through there a couple times. I haven't been to what's the biggest city? Is it
Tulsa?
Oklahoma City, Tulsa?
I've never
Yeah,
been to
I haven't
Oklahoma,
been
full
to those
disclosure.
cities, but
Yeah.
I drove through the Panhandle plenty of times, and man, there's just nothing there. It's like I don't think people would live there if TVs weren't a thing. I think when you can kind of teleport to another place with your TV, then
At this stage of my life though, like with a kid, I'm like, you know what? Like maybe Oklahoma is the spot, but yeah, it's probably not a great place to get your career started.
yeah, definitely not. And I mean, getting into the development world, I don't know if I'm capable, honestly. I did a little bit. I was really good at math in high school, and then I kind of just stopped doing math. I majored in exercise science, and the last 10 years, I would say that's also a useless degree, but I really do like exercise. But you can find everything on the internet. You don't need a degree for it.
Yeah.
And now, actually, 10 years later, I'm starting to pursue a certified strength and conditioning coach
Oh, cool.
program, and I'm thinking about getting into coaching a lot. I mean, your book, I felt like was written for me, is like trying to find that path. And I'm someone that just absolutely gets after stuff, but I just don't know what I'm supposed to be getting after, like
Yeah.
what is the path I'm supposed to be choosing. And I don't think like anyone's chosen a path for me or anything. Like I'm going down a path that someone chose for me, but I think a lot of my generation actually is trying to do the same thing, just like find out what am I supposed to be doing? What could I do that I would really enjoy? How can I work in the job that I do enjoy? And someone asked me, or maybe I asked myself, is like, what would you do if money wasn't a thing? Like, what would you be doing? And I said coaching. And so that's kind of why I'm starting to pursue this. And I'm going to keep my business going and, coach in the mornings and evenings, personal training. And then I'm thinking about coaching high school basketball as well, seeing if I like that. Just like pursue little things while I keep the career on
Yeah.
path. It's I think I'd rather accidentally get into coding because it's just very profitable. The world
Yeah, I
opens
know
up a
for
little when you're a good
it
developer.
it does. It's cool. I'm glad, but like you could pick it up at any stage. It's not that hard. It's that initial year is like so thankless when it's just rote memorization of like methods and some of the baseline concepts. Like the first year sucks. Like I would never go back and do the first year. I remember like the first big boy job I had, like full time, nice paycheck. Like I would wake up with like a panic attack at like 2 or 3 a.m. every morning because I would have a dream that I was like coding and I couldn't remember like method names. It was rough transition into that world. Your mileage may vary, but the first year kind of sucks. The first year kind
Yeah,
of sucks. Maybe that's true for everything. The strength and conditioning sounds rad though. That's a big part of my life too. We'll get a coaching session in if I'm up in your neck of the woods sometime.
absolutely. I love exercise. I just don't I haven't seen it as a career, I guess, and it's really hard to get jobs. They're not really paid much. You got to move across the country for opportunities, and I love doing crazy things. I did Ironman this year. I did 2 Ironman this year. I
Wow.
crashed in one of them and almost died, and then
Whoa.
that was not the best. And then I did the Leadville mountain bike race, and that's 105 miles through Leadville, which is like the highest incorporated city in America. So the altitude's crazy, and like
Wow.
powerlifted for 10 years before that. And I've just always, it's kind of been my out, how I seek peace. I feel like I would probably have mental illness if I didn't have some crazy athletic pursuit going on.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. Not to that extreme. I mean, those are some insane accomplishments. Man, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And it can't be automated by AI. Like that's a totally AI safe job.
I think
Coaching.
so. Yeah, coaching to some extent, especially team sports. I think you could probably. Lululemon tried Tonal, which was like a mounted
Mhm.
coach basically, and it just totally flopped, and people were not interested in that. I think having someone there, like looking at you and telling, "Okay, come on, give me one more," yeah, it's definitely different than any robot. I think is going to be. You're just like, "Oh wait, you're a
Well,
robot."
you've had
It's not.
you've had skin in the game too. It's like you've squatted this weight before. Like you know what it's like and you know what it takes to get there. There's some empathy there that you do not get from a robot.
Yeah, it's fun. Let's transition to your book. So Latin, pronounce it for me. Ex nihilo.
Ex nihilo.
Ex nihilo. I
Yeah,
just did this before we started recording. Ex nihilo. That is Latin for
from nothing.
from nothing. Incredible. I like that. Field Manual for Building Success Out of Nothing. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I have not finished it, but again, I felt like it was really written for me. And at the near the end of the book, I skimmed through again this morning to try to pull some questions from it as I prepared. One of them is about the allure of the summit. This destination we all chase. I think I found this in my endurance events as well. It's like you finish the
Quite
event.
literally.
It's honestly the most emotional part is before the finish line and the last mile. And then after you finish, like within 10 minutes, you're like, all right, that's done.
Yeah.
And it's just really not about, and everyone says that. Everyone says it's about the journey, and it's just so hard to actually internalize and believe. Talk about your experience with that.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of like big multi-year swings. I think anyone that gets a PhD kind of has that like long tail mindset of I want to do something really brutally hard that's going to test me not for a little bit of time, but for a long time, steadily. Kind of like change my lifestyle and change my whole mentality to support this goal. And same with the racing too. The race may be short, but you train for it for a long time, right? It's not like an overnight thing. You need to put the pieces in motion. And so what I found is once I achieved the PhD, I didn't think that like streamers would shoot from the sky and like all of a sudden I would have like a super cushy, really high income job or something like that. But I thought I would feel different afterwards. And there's no one there afterwards to pin, a medal on you saying, you're congrats, you're the smartest at this very narrow field that, quite frankly, most people outside of academia don't care about at all. And so, yeah, I fell into a depression for a short period of time. Not too long, but like I was in this real funk about like, I didn't think it's like this event horizon that you can't see past. And so I realized that for the past 10 years leading up to it, I hadn't really thought past like what happens after I get the PhD. I just kind of assume, I get a faculty job and I go teach, but details hazy, TBD. And even if as it got closer, I was so focused on the defense and finishing the dissertation that I hadn't thought about, what comes afterwards, what emotionally will that feel like? And yeah, it turns out one of the, I think, very true things that I discovered that I write about a little bit in the book is you're going to be really unhappy if you don't have one of those things to shoot for. And you can choose something to shoot for, or it can be foisted on you. So it's good to be aware of what you're chasing and why you're chasing it.
Yeah, no kidding. I been in recruiting for 10 years and PhDs, if the job description doesn't ask for a PhD, that's typically like, okay, let's look into it more because it could be a bad sign.
Yes, exactly. That's been my experience. I actually hit it on my resume for the first job. I got lucky, but I think 2 or 3 jobs after that, I just omitted it from my resume. It's like if they asked, I would talk about it, but otherwise, it's like they're gonna think I'm gonna want $1 bajillion a year, and like I'm kind of weird and nuanced and specifically focused. So that's interesting. Could you tell me more about like what is the red flag with a PhD there?
Well, if it's a PhD with little work experience, like this person
Yeah,
hasn't had a job, they know how to study, they don't know how to build to some extent. Obviously, there's a ton of nuance with anything like that, but or it's like too much. We don't need that much firepower. We just need someone that we can tell what to do and they'll do it. We
yep,
don't need someone that smart or
yeah,
that
yeah.
not committed, but just like I need a doer. I don't need a
Yeah.
thinker in this role.
Yes. Yeah, that's an accurate take. It's an accurate take. It's definitely perception to fight with.
I worked for a startup in Germany, and our CEO was a Turkish, or I think he was Iranian. He's an Iranian PhD, and our CTO had a PhD, and both of them just like we're not high praisers of PhDs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't recommend it. But then when they saw a PhD, they did have a mutual respect for it. They're
Yeah.
like, okay, that's somewhat impressive. I had the similar like the event horizon feeling. I was like, man, when I'm gonna have an Iron, like I've been thinking about this for literally 12 years. I think when I was in college, I said, okay, I'm gonna do an Ironman in college. I didn't do it. I was like, okay, I'll do it by 25, and then I didn't do it. I was like, okay, I'll do it by 30. So I've kind of been thinking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm on my honeymoon, and the lady we were staying with in Perth, Australia, it was like the most isolated city in the world, where my wife spent 5 years of her childhood.
Wow.
We stayed at her childhood friend's parents' house just for a few days. And she's an Ironman triathlete. She does all of them. Like she's done hundreds practically. And she ran a half marathon before we woke up for a training session. And she goes, I don't think you could do it. Wyatt. It's like, all right, there it is. And I put it on the calendar.
Yeah, yeah.
Started training pretty much as soon as we got back, but that was a half, and then I went back to powerlifting and did like a 40 pound swing and weight, and then I came all the way back. I was like, I
Whoa.
gotta do a full now. I can't go through life saying I've only done half of something, and
Yeah.
then I get the full done this year, and people just like people, oh, that's cool, and then if you want to talk about it more, it's like, oh, have you done an Ironman? And it's like, dang, I just want to like this is like a really big part of my life for the last year. I just want to talk about it. I just want to wear the hat, you know.
Yeah. That's one of those rare things too, where it's like people be crabs in a bucket if they haven't taken like a big swing and been successful, or if they're not like just extremely secure in who they are. Like it's weird. It's very strange to tell people about it. Like, I mean, I'm never going to do an Ironman. Like that is, I think it's beyond my physical capacity, but I have like so much respect for it because it's like, yes, it's the physical training and all of that stuff, but the mental toughness to do it, like that is the part that doesn't come easy.
Now that it's done, it feels way easier than what I built it up to be. I think the half was harder than the full because I had trained a longer time for it.
Mm, mm.
And the race day is just so fun. People are just so supportive and you're just eating a ton, and this was a good time. But that's a good segue into the next kind of topic that I think everyone's heard as well, but it's just people need to think about it more. Motivation doesn't exist. Just show up for your commitment every day. So in my life, that's certainly been the case. You know, you very rarely. I think if you really enjoy something, you can be motivated to do it. But for the most part, you just gotta do it. And so, kind of talk through your I guess, examples in your life where that's really been applicable and where you've seen other people search for this motivation and maybe fail because it's just not there. You can't live off motivation.
Yeah, I'll take it back to art because I learned this one, I think, intuitively very early on and then wasn't able to formalize it until much later. But I studied with this incredible composer when I first started studying music composition. His name was Burton Bierman. He was quite old when I studied with him, like semi-retired. I don't know if he's still living, but he would come up if you Googled him. I will do so after this. And he was like less of a composition instructor and more of like some kind of sage, like wizard. Like he would just say these super wise things. We might not even talk about music at all during the meeting for the week. And it's stuff that, you know, probably frankly, like was not that helpful at that point, but he was like planting little seeds that 5 or 10 years later, I'm like, what the heck? This guy could see around every corner. You know, he had like been there, done that. And, you know, one of the things that I approached him with is I came to him and I'm like, I just am not feeling inspired to like compose this week. Like I didn't get anything done that we talked about on this piece I was writing. I think it was for saxophone and piano or some strange ensemble like that. I'm just like, I just didn't get anything done. I wasn't feeling the vibe this week. And he was usually like a pretty kind, laid back dude, but he got like a little intense. Like he kind of broke through it and he was pretty stern with me. And he said something to the effect of like, I don't care if you're inspired or not inspired. Like this is a really tough career. And if you're going to make it, like you cannot wait for inspiration. You cannot wait for motivation. You can't wait for a reason to do it. Just decide that you're all in and then do it every day, whether you feel like it or don't feel like it, and write bad music if that's what it takes. But basically the point he was making is that the output is really secondary to the process. That process in particular, you know, music composition, it wasn't necessarily about writing the score. It wasn't necessarily about delivering the final piece of artwork. It was about developing in yourself a process which shaped yourself as you did it every day. It shapes discipline, it shapes intentionality. And once you develop that inside of yourself, like you have this motivation that you can apply to anything. You can just decide that's important, I want to do it. And then you can just put one foot in front of the other by manual effort. You've built up that manual effort over time. So I saw it there. And similarly, you know, to say I see this in other people as well, I'm starting to see it a lot in software engineers, which is crazy. I mean, things were really good during the 0% interest rate thing for a little while. Like I think a lot of companies overhired. I think that a lot of companies lowered the bar for engineering. I think there's a lot of folks that slipped into engineering that I'm not going to say don't deserve to be there. Everyone deserves to be there, but have never had to fight for it. You know, they kind of came in during an easy time and they're not used to how the field is, you know, on a general trend over a few decades now. So a lot of the time what I'll see happen is I'll see like, you know, younger engineer, they'll come in from college or a boot camp and they'll be really enthusiastic about the gig. And then that'll taper off after a little while because they'll start to get very particular about like, you know, I really wanted to write Golang and I'm writing a lot of Rust and I really want to write more Golang. And I feel like my career is stagnating because I'm not writing more of the language that I want to write. And I always pull them aside and I always have this kind of spiel with them. I tell them about, Burton Bierman, the composition anecdote that I relayed earlier. And I tell them that, like, yes, obviously you do want to track towards the languages you like and the tech you like over time, but this is more a process about developing yourself and developing your own motivation as an engineer. And that's the important part, especially early career too. Early career, once you learn how to be an engineer, like, you can pick up languages pretty quickly. I don't want to say it's trivial, but it's totally not a huge deal once you have a few under your belt. So that's I think the place I most often see it playing out now. And yeah, we can speculate to the reasons why. Is it like instant gratification culture? Is it kind of what people see about motivation on social media? Those sorts of things. I don't really know, but I know this is what I'm dealing with as an engineering manager and leader, over the past 5 years or so, quite frequently.
That concept, I mean, I think it makes sense that people have thought about it and put it into action. Anthony Huberman, I'm assuming, is it Andrew Huberman? Assuming you're
Cannot
familiar.
remember. I know who you're talking about, though.
Yeah, I assumed you would. He kind of not broke the internet, but he kind of went somewhat viral when he talked about a study that was published that there is a part in your brain that actually is associated with discipline and committing to doing hard things. Like, you actually can condition your brain to get better at doing harder things. And I don't think any of us knew that before that came out. And so it almost seems like there is a physical component to actually being good at it, and being disciplined and finding motivation to do these things, and just doing it every day. But you think, for the most part, it's just, okay, today's the day I do it, and tomorrow I'll do it again, and the next day I'll do it again. And you actually are getting better at doing it. You actually are getting better at showing up every time you do show up, which seems obvious, but there actually is a part of your brain. I wish I had it pulled up. It's like not the prefrontal cortex, but it's a longer name, where there actually is. He talked to David Goggins about it. It's like there actually is a
Cool.
part of your brain that you get better at doing hard things as you do them. I like the ice bath in the winter. I don't do it in the summer because I don't want to pay for something to cool the water. I live in Denver, so I have a horse, a cattle trough
Yeah.
that just fills up with water, and then it'll freeze over, and it stays clean enough because it's frozen over.
Yeah.
And then I'll bust the ice and jump in. It's so
Man,
incredibly hard the first time, and you do it a few times, and then it starts to be really fun.
that's rad. That's rad. You can't even do a cold shower here in Phoenix.
Yeah, cold showers are honestly, I think, harder because you have to, you want to get it everywhere, and every time it hurts. But when you jump in the ice water, it just feels like you're fully immersed. You're in. You can't do anything about it. Cold shower is so easy to step out or change the.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what I need to do. That's harder for me.
I want to give it a shot. I'm gonna look into building an ice bath to stave off the 100+ degree temperatures here.
Yeah, the coolers definitely exist. You can literally just buy a pool or a trough or whatever, anything to fill with water, and then it's just a plug-in unit that cycles the water. Probably costs a decent amount to cool it, but especially if it's 100 out.
It
I don't
feels
know how
quite
you
nice.
live
I
in
might
Phoenix.
spend the whole afternoon in it then.
Yeah, my brother and sister and dad and a bunch of others, family members live in Phoenix. I just don't know how we all moved out of California, the exodus, during the pandemic, 'cause it's just a miserable place
Same.
to live. And they all chose the hottest place in the world. And I was like, come on, can we choose anything else? And so I went to Denver with my wife, and now I'm trying to convince everyone to come to Denver, but it's a little more expensive. You got to move
Yeah.
from California to Denver because it's half price. But if you move from Arizona to Denver, it's
Yeah.
more expensive. If you move from California to Arizona, it's like half price or a little less.
Yeah, you
than
get
half price.
comfortable here. Yeah, we had a good glow up moving out here. We like it out here quite a bit.
Yeah,
I would move back to. I always quip. I would move back to California, but I need like $1 billion in the bank minimum to do it.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly how I feel. It's like, I want to live in San Luis Obispo. I'd be happy to live in
Yeah.
Monterey, be near the beach, or San Diego even. But yeah, I need 5-10 million first.
Yeah, I'm from Ohio. I need my space. I don't want to be able to see my neighbors too well.
Yeah, I guess there's just a lot of people. How about you talk about finding mentors in the book? What was your experience with that, and how do you think that could be improved for the average person? I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I think it can kind of just happen by circumstance. I don't think a lot of people seek out mentors. Is that something you've ever done? What has your been experience with mentorship?
Yeah, that's a great question. Been just really fortunate to have lucked into a few good ones early on, but I don't think that that's necessary. I think that especially early career, or early in your journey, if you have really bad mentors, as long as you kind of have your good boundaries set, you're not going to take things too personally. It can be useful to have those early on. I mean, I've definitely, like everyone else, I've had some great managers and some really just abhorrently horrible managers over the years. And all of those experiences have come back because, that way, if you have a misstep or if you do something a little bit, I don't know, like unkind, you feel it right away. You're like, ah, crap, that's like when this happened to me. So it gives you empathy. So I don't know that it matters too much early on, other than just try to find mentors and work with people really closely, especially that are in some kind of advisory capacity over you, and just make your private judgments about that you're observing at the early stage. And then once it gets later on, I tell you, it's really difficult right now because people are less social. You have less serendipitous social interactions post COVID. Now that so many things have moved to online. And then, I've been to a bunch of these like quote unquote networking events, but generally it's other people that are there for the capital N networking. So they're kind of like inauthentic, like, here's my card, too much cologne kind of vibe, trying to sell you something. So it's like, it's totally not my vibe. So actually the best way that I have found really good mentors is by just getting involved in hobbies. Just get involved in hobbies, something pretty unrelated to tech usually. And then I generally find a couple people working in tech. We have a connection because of the hobby. Sometimes they become a mentor, sometimes they don't. But that's kind of the way I've found it. I think if you go out looking for it specifically through one of these networking events or like a very organized way, then you're going to get somebody who's trying to sell themselves as a mentor, which is maybe the biggest red flag that they are not going to be a good mentor.
Been to those, and I've had the exact same experience.
It's miserable. The free food never justifies it either.
No, and the beer, I'm like, I don't want alcohol anyway.
Yeah, same.
I actually, the a huge part of why I signed up for the full Ironman as well is because I wanted to build a network of people that are doing these crazy endurance things, but also are successful in their career. And so I'm like, I'm going to build this networking group. I was like, okay, well, I gotta walk the walk if I'm gonna, try to do that. And so I actually have made some great friends, and it's just really cool. I totally agree with that. Just finding people through your hobbies, through things you enjoy, you share mutual interests, and you're gonna make friends. If not, awesome mentor, they're gonna be great people that really align with you and your values and your interests. You talk about that in the book too, finding hobbies, finding something you're really interested in. Is that something that you discovered? Is that something that you've always kind of prioritized? How do you approach things kind of outside of work and how you invest your time?
Yeah. Great question. I didn't in undergrad and early on in my career. I was all single pointed focus. This is the only thing I'm doing. This is me. This defines me entirely. And I think I had some early failures or missteps, like you will in any venture. And the degree to which they affected my mental health and perception of myself, I realized was like, this is a huge liability to like sum up like all of who I am into this one thing. So I kind of called it like, this is before I was married, and it's a little crude, but I'll use it. Like during the PhD, it's the dissertation. Every day I would sit down to write the dissertation, and it gets so dry at a certain point. I'm like, it's like the dissertation is kind of my wife, and then I have like this mistress, which is the hobby on the side that kind of like, it distracts me. It's the polar opposite of the dissertation. So for me, in grad school, I had a few things, but like one of them was like riding motorcycles. I had a ZX6R out there in Southern California. I would get out and I would tear up the canyons, early on a Saturday. It would just get me to totally stop thinking about the dissertation, totally stop thinking about my career. Paradoxically, like some of the best ideas came from that. I think I had insights that I was able to apply cross from motorcycling to the type of research that I was doing. So these things generally have happy connections, but the core of it is you need to be authentic with picking them. You can't just like, I feel like especially with dudes right now, you get like slotted into hobbies. There's kind of the regular hobbies. Like you go in all in on like being a football fan. Like you got a team and like that's your whole thing. And there's nothing wrong with that if you pick it. But I see a bunch of people going into these like default hobbies, and this only really works if it's something you're authentically that really turns you on. Like motorcycling did for me, which I'm glad I got it out of my system now. I don't ride them anymore. I have a daughter. The risk calculus changed, but for me, it's like that was just something I always wanted to do. It was just selfish. It had no benefits. It's like, I'm not going to race this. I'm not going to make a career out of it, nor do I intend to. I just like it a lot.
I've always kind of wanted a motorcycle, and the danger aspect is a little scary to me. I talked to a guy across the street actually who rides motorcycles, and he goes, well, actually, half of the motorcycle deaths are men like 19 to 24. And so if you take those out, then it's not as bad. And then the other half, or another, 15%, these stats are all fake, but he gave me the real ones, but they were substantial. Another certain percentage are people without a license. So people that
Yep.
actually didn't get the motorcycle license. And another percent are, I think, people going over 100 or something, or maybe not. Maybe it was different. But essentially, it was saying like 75% of all motorcycle deaths are things that you wouldn't fit in that bucket. And so when you take all those out, it's actually not that. It's actually not that unsafe. It's actually kind of safer because you're so aware or something like that. And I was like,
That's a
okay.
bold argument. I'd endorse it's not as dangerous as the statistics want you to believe. If you don't drink, if you don't ride at nighttime, you have a license, you've had training, all of those things, it can be okay. I don't think I was really I wasn't drinking or anything, but I wasn't riding safe in California when they allow lane splitting. I was trying to get to where I was going quite fast. So, like I said, I'm glad that I didn't have I had one wreck, but other than that, pretty safe. So I'm glad I did it. It's
Yeah,
done.
put it away.
But kind of secretly, you don't have a kiddo yet. Look into it.
Yeah,
Get a little
do it for now.
motorcycling, and it's way more fun than you think it is too. It's one of those rare treats.
I believe it. I've been getting into mountain biking, and man, it's just the thrill of just kind of being on the edge of, well, you could
Yeah,
get hurt here.
yeah.
That's something in the male brain.
I got to touch the hot stove burner. Yeah, I'm the same
Yeah.
way. I don't know what it is.
I do disagree with you about the hobby of liking football.
Oh,
I think professional sports are just an incredible waste of time. You're doing nothing. You're just wasting your life away looking at someone else do something.
personally, I feel the same way. People seem into it. I don't know. I catch some Formula One. That's about the extent of my professional sports spectatorship.
Yeah, my buddy loves Formula One too. I might look into it. It does sound exciting. I mean, that's like just peak brain
Yeah,
ability. It's pretty cool, and the engineering behind it is super interesting too. It, just especially hate football because it's like
same.
the average 13 minutes of football for a 3.5 hour viewing event is just insane to me. I don't
It's
understand.
so painful. It's so painful. I'll like go to a game. I mean, same with baseball. It's like if you invite me out to a game, like in real, like 100%, I'm going to go. But then it's like a social event. It's different. Like, but
Yeah.
I do not get watching it on TV. I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
I totally can get it if you grew up watching a sport with your dad and he was just all in. And
Yeah.
I think that does make sense. Like it's just been a staple of your life for a long time. But I just think it's an excuse to be lazy.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So watching football, not an acceptable hobby as per the Peaking podcast.
Yeah, we're trying to peak out here. We're not trying to watch others peak. You don't want
Yeah.
to watch others climb mountains. You need to get out and climb the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah. Get scarred up.
You said writing this book is probably one of the most difficult things you've ever done. Why did you want to write a book?
I don't think anybody, well, I don't know. Maybe some people do want to write books. This is the third book I've written, and any book that I've written, I haven't wanted to write. I felt like it's necessary. It's necessary. So for this one in particular, I just had so many repetitious bits of advice and guidance coming up. Again, very specifically for engineers first getting into the field as I was becoming a manager and have been an engineering leader over the past few years. And I guess it felt like it was taking up so much space in my head, and there were still some indefinite angles that I needed to write it all down to figure out the conclusions of some of these things that I was saying. Like, what if I take this first principles thought and walk it all the way to the end of sort of a logical progression in the real world? Like, what do you get? What are the results? Are there principles? Are there overarching sort of signposts for this that you can trace along and follow out a path? So I didn't so much want to write it. I just felt like I had to get it down on paper. I was talking to my wife about this in about January of this year, and she's just like, you should write it into a book. And I'm like, it's going to turn me into like kind of a monster. You know how I am when I write a book. When I was writing the dissertation, I get very, very methodical. This is probably delving, somewhat probably into mental illness versus peculiarity of who I am. But when I'm writing, I like to have the same breakfast every day. And then I like to immediately sit down and write with my coffee. And I like to write about 500 words minimum per session. I built some writing software where I could do this in the terminal. It would show me my word count, how I was tracking for the day, generate stats over time to see how I was going towards the word count. And I'll do that as a first stage. I don't want to get too deep into the writing process, but it's a grueling thing to write a book, I think, if it's really coming from the heart, because it forces you to self-examine, take really uncomfortable looks at things, and ultimately have to trap down these abstract thoughts in your head in words, which is it's just labor. It's a very thankless thing to do, to write a book, especially in a day and age where most people don't read too.
It's so hard to read. I really struggle to read. It's just your brain gets rewired with these short dopamine hits and getting back to reading. I'm trying to read like 4 things right now. I'm reading Teddy Roosevelt's biography. I'm
Mm,
reading the Bible. I'm reading
mm.
your book. And then I think there was, what's the other one? I'm trying to, it's on the table over there. It shows you how much JFK's relationship with the Southern Black population. And I'll read for like 1 or 2 pages, and then I realize that I read the words, but I have no idea what I just read. I had to go
Yeah,
back and read it again. And it's just so annoying because I really want to take in this information. I want to learn about this stuff. I find it incredibly interesting, but the form of intake is just so messed up with the competition, the way
yeah.
these data scientists and, PhDs have ruined our brains with these algorithms. Like
It's
I
true.
used to,
It's true.
it is true. I used to hire the researchers for Facebook. I would hire the
Wow.
researchers to work on these social media systems, and they're researchers. It's not like the average Joe,
Yeah,
just building something fun. People with PhDs in psychology, people with PhDs in cognitive science, neuroscience, and that's what we're up against. And so you go back to
yeah,
just the written word, the brain is just like, what is this? I don't I don't eat this
yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
It's like back to gruel when you're used to eating filet, for your brain at least. And
yeah.
it's really frustrating. I hate it.
Same, same. I got back into it through insomnia. I was having a really rough spell and somebody suggested reading. So I'd lay down and I would just kind of keep thinking about, problems throughout the day, what's coming up tomorrow, those sorts of things. And someone suggested reading. So I got into Audible. I'd never read an audiobook before that. And that's my thing. That was like an hour before bed. I'll do like some light yoga, some stretching, and then I'll toss a book on. And that's how I wind down. Then I fall asleep thinking about that as opposed to what happened during the day. And that's what got me back in the habit. But yeah, physical books, I feel like came pretty shortly after that. I'm a pretty voracious reader. I was hyperlexic as a child. I used to read dictionaries and then tell my parents about what was in the dictionaries.
That's awesome. We didn't have a TV growing up, and I think that's part of why I don't
Cool.
watch TV. We just didn't have one. So we played for like 5 years. We played Scrabble competitively in the house, and
Wow.
like while one person was playing, the other person would be in the Scrabble dictionary, just like trying to remember all the words. I could name every single Scrabble legal word for 2 letters, because the 2-letter word is just an incredible advantage in Scrabble because you can
Yeah, you
string
live or
like
die
6
by
words.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, you need all the 2-letter words. And so we would read the dictionary as well. I haven't met too many people that could say the same. That's pretty good.
No, there's definitely something cooked and off about me.
We would go to the library and we all get a stack of books. My parents would take us to the public library, and we'd all get 10, 12, 15 books, and not like crazy intellectual books, just like kids' books, teenage books. And then we finish our stack and we go trade, and we get the sibling
Cool.
stack, and then we get the other sibling stack, and we would go through so many books. And it was kind of a cheat code for life, like
Yes.
a little unfortunate, honestly, how not challenging public education was if you just
Yeah.
read once in a while. And I think I had a 12th grade reading level in like 4th or 5th grade. And it's just
Wow.
like, it was not that impressive. He just knows how to read. I just
Sure.
read. That was it. It's like, it became this for the next, 10 years, all through, public school. I was never challenged. I think that did kind of set me back.
Same.
But I
You
do
become the
recommend.
slacker, right?
Yeah, I just like I didn't really do homework. I didn't need to, or I
Yep.
could do it in like 10 minutes. And
Yep.
if I was at a private school or some type of education system, which I think they're rolling out right now with a few pilot programs of, a individualized AI tutor for every single candidate or student,
Whoa.
and it basically has you at the level you're at. And so you're never behind, you're never in front of the class, you're always
Mm.
just on your own pace. And yeah, if that was around, I think if that's for anyone, everyone will do better, because people won't they'll be able to catch up, or they'll be able to go at their pace. And I think at 18, I probably would have been a lot further ahead than I was. But public education is a whole nother thing. I tried to dive into that for like 4 months, and the superintendent with a Harvard MBA and a Harvard public education master's, or maybe a doctorate as well, is just like, don't do it. There's nothing you can impact here. It's not worth
Yeah,
it. Like,
we're kind of fatalistic on that as well. My daughter's 3, and we're starting to think about like, well, like it seems reasonable to do homeschooling, especially in Arizona. I think we have like we're definitely in like the bottom 10 public school systems in the nation. Homeschooling's kind of looking like the way if we can figure out the social aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Same way.
My brother and his wife are doing it too. They have 4 boys. It's just
Nice.
you just don't know what you're gonna get,
Yeah.
especially with we don't need to get too into it, but it's just
Yeah.
school's so political now too. It's just like goodness. We
Yeah.
just learn
Yeah.
arithmetic. We learn how to read. Very good. Well, I usually have these about 40 minutes. Anything else you wanted to cover? Anything else you really like talking about from the book that you would want to cover?
No, I think you hit the main ones real well. You went right for the kill shot on those.
Yeah, very fun book. I definitely recommend. I think anyone just thinking about doing something new or trying to find that passion. I think that's such a prevalent issue with at least my generation that I can speak for in the conversations that I've had. So I think it would be very valuable. So thank you for writing it. Great to meet you. And thank you for coming on Peaking. You're welcome back at any time.
Oh, thank you so much, Wyatt. And for the listeners, if you want to purchase Ex Nihilo, it's available on Amazon now. Just search Ex Nihilo Simmons. It'll come right up. And then I'm blogging on Substack pretty regularly at blog.drjoshcsimmons.com. But thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Really insightful questions, Wyatt. I want to come back on and interview you about Ironman and Ironman prep. You've seeded the interest in me, and now I don't even know exactly what the event entails, but like maybe I could do an Ironman. You put the spark of possibility in me now.
To be fair, I did it without kids. I think that is a significant difference. I think because the time investment is it's an hour a day. And then on Saturday, typically you start building up and eventually you have like a 6-hour workout. And so it does stack up. But yeah, I can talk about that forever. I don't think my audience is that interested, but who knows?
That's a different pod. We'll do that in a different show.
Well, if we make it the focus of the episode, I'm definitely interested. I don't know if we should keep this one about you.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Awesome. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks so much, Wyatt. Take care.